All right. Thank you all for coming to the fourth installment of the New Orleans Poetry Fest Roadshow, the final leg of our journey out here. I would like to thank Chris Smith of the Jefferson Parish Library for organizing this beautiful room and hosting this New Orleans Poetry Festival event. On behalf of NOPF, funding for this event has been partially provided by the state of Louisiana and administered by the Louisiana Endowment for the Humanities. Additionally, New Orleans Poetry Festival expresses extreme gratitude to the Literature Translation Institute of Korea for funding the Korean poets at this event. We have 6 poets who will perform tonight. 3 are Louisiana residents and 3 are Korean residents. After all the poets have performed, we'll have a brief Q&A, so feel free to stir up some questions while you're listening. We'll begin with the Louisiana poets. Up first, Christine Kwon is the author of A Ribbon the Most Perfect Blue from Southeast Missouri State University Press in 2023. She is the winner of the 2022 Cowles Poetry Book Prize. Her poems are forthcoming in the Harvard Advocate, Copper Nickel, the Xavier Review, and Annulette. Follow her work on ChristineKwonWrites.com or on Instagram at The School of Longing. She lives in a yellow house on St. Roch. Please welcome Christine Kwon up to the stage. Would you mind coming up to the front?
Really?
Yes, please. I'm sorry. The last minute shifts for the camera. Thank you.
Standing?
Yeah. If you really want to sit, you can sit.
No, I'm okay. But I'm gonna do a weird thing and do this. I need to. I don't know why.
You're good.
I'm very close to you right now.
Oh, okay. I'm also going to swallow my gum. I already did it. Okay. Wow. Okay. I had a chaos day, so my reading will be a little chaotic, including one that I typed up 10 minutes before coming here. Okay. I'm gonna read maybe 5 poems, maybe fewer. This one is called Franz Wright. Okay. Who is a poet? I really lie again, I used to know. I buy your book because you're dead, and we had dinner once, sitting side by side in a long booth, candlelight. You were happy, in a gray suit, loose as a poet, your face grotesque, except the sad eyes, the smile, the voice. What was I, 21, 22? But that night had nothing disgusting in it. All you did was sign my book. The other beautiful youth trying to say something smart, you were smiling and smiling, barely ate at all. The food didn't register. Like an old suit, your pain was soft. If you had rage, I felt none, sitting next to you. I felt a bird land on your shoulder. That was how lightly you were there. Just the other day, I gasped, hearing the news. You had been dead 7 years. You must have been dying, sitting next to me. Secretly, deliciously, you knew like desire, kept to yourself. Today, I lay on my friend's stoop, stretching like a cat. I wanted him to know I was dying. He was dying too. How special it was to be dying together. But it's so easy to mislead people. Better to say nothing at all. Okay. I'm gonna pick it up a little bit. Okay. This one's called How's Your Head? Have you guys seen RuPaul, the show? I'm asking the Korean poets now. Highly recommend.
Which?
RuPaul. R-U space P-A-U-L. Look it up. Because there's a line. It's a joke on the show. The title is called How's Your Head? And it is from that show. Anytime someone mentions the word head, head, RuPaul's like, how's your head? And it is a dirty joke. Okay. Please look it up. Take that one takeaway from America. Okay. My Catulla's hungry. He ordered lunch. He keep that nose big. I feel it when he munch. My Catullus, still in college, dazzled in the sterling stacks, still in that luxury state of mind, writing on Alexander Pope, a Catullus here and a Catullus there, hat and coat in a train, in the hall, in the club, in the taxi, in the rain. My Catullus is a 10 in the face, a 10 in the body, says, you want to come in? I can bring all my Catullus to the yard, I can erect the dead. My Catullus, so hard, no word gleams enough. My Catullus is bigger than yours because you don't have one. Part of my Catullus is touching France, the other hand, your underpants. You can read it, but I'll have to charge. You can ship it, though it's extra large. Import taxes, heavy-duty tape, stock a shipyard. My Catullus sing till his face round and blue, until he rosy pink as the moon. All of us Catulluses climb into bed till the earth grows flowers from our head. Our head is good. How's yours? Is it on tight? Is it blown? The cat's meow? Is it slicing bread? Is it hot as hell, or is it already dead? Tell me, how's your head? Is it growing inch by inch? Mine's still drinking milk, lapping out a dish. I can't sit no more in my head, gonna find myself one more wife, someone to pick up, someone to clean up. But tell me, is one wheel still spinning? Is that your real face, or are you just a clown? And is one Catullus all you own? Here's one. I'm being very vulnerable because it's like I just typed it up and it has probably typos. I don't know. I haven't read it out loud. It's called "No One Will Take Me to the Sparrows Party," and that is a line from Farouk Farrokhzad, an Iranian poet, maybe born in the 30s, died at 32. Okay, so I'm teaching a workshop right now, and it's a generative workshop for writing poetry. And I did my own prompt, because my prompt this week, I highly recommend you come take my class the next time it is on. It's in City Park. I have to advertise myself because I'm a poet. Anyways, my prompt this week is listen to a video or a song or an interview on YouTube in a different language and translate those sounds into English and try to capture like the tone or sense of it. And I did the prompt myself, and I started it that way, but I went off track like I always do because I'm disorganized. Okay. No one will take me to the sparrow's party. And Cooper, this one's for you, so listen. That's my husband. And he's in trouble today, so. I'll show you autumn, oh, Louis. I'll show you autumn boring and summer depressed, strumming your guitar in your black and white striped shirt, singing under your breath. Lamb and Zatar under the red light, and 10 cigarettes in, I quit 10 months ago. The smoke curling around my head, perfuming my hair, is my heart, barbecuing on the grill. I've let fall my little blue childhood. Just when I thought I loved nothing, God, teach me how to love. I got my son, my son, my son, my son, his chortling laugh, his snow-white mouth, his eyelashes so long they cast shadows, and the birds land all at once, weighing down my boughs. My coworker called it her nerves. My other coworker, who was young, said, teach me how to do my taxes. And I wanted her to teach me how to love again. Love without thinking, love with suffering. I wanted to tell you, pick up your lyre, husband. Like a sparrow, my love is light. Like a sparrow, flying, chirping, calling, brown, fluffy, stupid. Like the thousands of sparrows that flew into that one wall in Italy. Like a sparrow, all I'm good for is a spot of singing. Back on earth, I'm a sparrow. I trill and trill and trill. And you don't know it's sparrow, for I love you. And one from my book, in case one of you will buy it. I brought 6 copies. Okay. Ugh. Lordy. Okay. Affirmations. When I show people old photos of myself, no one says, oh, you look the same. Woe is me. I do not do affirmations. I do not do yoga. I could, but I am not that kind of person. I made my undergraduates read Mansfield Park so we could hate Fanny together. I watch a fly whirling in the kitchen as if aware of the abyss. The older I get, the more spiritual also. Giving my best, as George Eliot would say, diseased participation, I stand around at the party wondering why no one likes writers. After dinner over digestives, they talk about race. Why not? Claudia Rankine wrote about sitting around such a table and wanting to flip it over, wanting to be asked to leave. Otherwise, why would they say such things? The older I get, the more I dislike white people, especially in large groups. Things like this I must never say aloud. I wondered if I would have married a white person if I were choosing now. My therapist waits with bated breath. The one thing I couldn't stand, I say, is someone like me, badly paraphrasing Claudia Rankine. The spiritual idea that appeals to me is the Buddhist idea that you are nothing regarding the nothing that is and the nothing that isn't. Very Wallace Stevens, but I also take it to mean I am the beggar on the street begging please. Sometimes I feel as if I want to make a friend, but I don't call the ones I have in love. All I would say is LOL. Rising naked from a white sheet and trailing about the house scaring my cats, I decide I don't want to be like Emily Dickinson and wait for my sister-in-law to publish my treasure trove after I die. My sisters-in-law are the athletic type. Looking at an old photo of myself, I'm surprised I ever looked that way. Looking in the mirror, I am surprised I ever looked that way. Is that what living is? So many days of doing nothing, and a feeling going through, like a ribbon in a book. Thank you.
Next up, Rodrigo Toscano is the author of 11 books of poetry. His latest books are The Cut Point from Countercraft Press in 2023, The Charm and the Dread from Fence Books in 2022. His new forthcoming book, Whitman, Cannonball, Puebla, will be published by Omnidon Books. His Collapsible Poetics Theater was a National Poetry Series selection. His poetry has appeared in over 20 anthologies, including Best American Poetry, 2023 and 2004, and Best American Experimental Poetry. Toscano received a New York State Fellowship in Poetry. He won the Edwin Marquand Prize in 2019 for poetry, and he was an honorable mention for the 2023 International Latino Literary Awards. His poetry has been translated into French, Dutch, Italian, German, Portuguese, Norwegian, and Catalan, but notably not Korean. He works for the Labor Institute in conjunction with the National Institute for Environmental Health and Science. Come on up, Rodrigo Toscano.
Hi. So this, sometimes I write about place and the density, historical density of place, and this is one poem like that. This one's called Songsters. Songsters is my word for like poets, like songsters. Okay. Songsters. How did people procreate around these parts 50 years ago? Under what conditions 100 years ago? By what constraints and liberties 200 years ago? To what ends, with what means 400 years ago? What rituals impelled, what songs propelled 800 years ago? What songs were deemed fit and by whom? 1600 years ago, songsters back at camp, sampling other camps, compressing and fitting old songs to new times. 3,200 years ago, call it quits on rituals purpose, till a direction is journeyed, is divined. 6,400 years ago, songsters vying, who's shining, who's not. 12,800 years ago, vanguards in tatters, retrofitted, jimmied, just long enough to make relevance. And here's another poem, more about like New Orleans. This one's called The Peopling. The peopling is like when one people sort of end up in a place. That's what that means. The peopling. For the Crescent City, which is, the Crescent City is a name for New Orleans. The peopling. The peopling, and you gotta love or hate that word of this here, cypress, swamp, river bend. It's a long, long, and super short, complicated, very simple, non-story of tales, fantastical, voluminous, adding up to something, while subtractive of itself, about to multiply under the radar like people's lived lives under this here style of economic and cultural dredged collection of impulses and reflexes and imaginations and indeed peopling of peoples, peopling a genuine non-story of tales, fantastical, intermittent, fractal microns of feelings, half thoughts processed, refined, and marked up to epic proportions, dimensions, to get lost in, to meet a few flakes lost along the way, showing the way by tales, fantastical luminescence, blown away by raging storms, slammed against walls, institutional, administrative ministerings, you guessed it, a non-story of tales, fantastical, interruptive, blown glass, mint julep, fluted beakers, cracking up, spilling out, a micron's worth effect on the people in process, on boulevards and alleyways and sturdy, decorative, colorful abodes and flopping makeshift tents under the highway overpass. Okay. So this next one is called Right the City. What's the point of New York City? Or, for that matter, Calgary, or any city on a hill, or hidden far beneath the waves? Any city at any time, any city planned or dreamt of. What's the point of males and females? What's the rub with transportation, movement of foodstuffs or the arts, distribution of new pleasures, or the same old ones year by year, making for a steady story? What's the point of stock characters, emotions bundled or spread out, arguments over arguments, escapes from argumentation, fantastical propositions, promises to extend a hand? What's the point of scheduling things, all in tandem or at random through avenues, streets, and alleyways, secrets secreted forever or spilled onto morning pavement, draining into holes seaward bound? What's the point of that lingerie, that tie's length and width and color, fraying from overuse or disuse, weighing X amount per square ton, legs, rubber, arms, cotton, eyes, steel? What point in writing the city? I'm just going to jump to this here. This one is called English. And yeah, English. Done with you for the time being. Bayous, docks in Creole French, back and forth in Castilian. Laid off cooks in Tagalog, at water's edge in Celtic. Stifling humidity in Vietnamese. Stifling prospects in German. Construction continues in Mandarin. Ducks paddling by in Neapolitan. Back and forth in Nigerian. Minimal ambulance howl in Greek. Porsche flies in Punjabi. Homeless placard flaps in Romanian. Back and forth in Bantu. Teens in jeeps in Persian. Picnickers gather in Hebrew. Ducks bobbing in Malaysian. Invisible 4G pulse in Norwegian. 3 F-15s streaking in Korean. Back and forth in Somali. reeds random swang in Arabic, ducks take flight in Russian, beer cans snapping in Chitimacha, dark clouds gathering in Homa, bayou clearing in Choctaw. And the last one is my poem in honor of Taylor Swift. And this one's called, in Spanish, Espectacularistas, which means spectacularists. Spectacularistas for Swifties. Snaking lines, out here's, anticipation's guts. We want something, and now, even more. Crowds cheering, we're the same people. Even more. We want diamonds refracting us all night. Doors opening, in here's everything, not out there. We want pinks, we want blues, we want golds. Doors closing, we can do that, and other things. We want platforms hovering above and beyond, lights pulsing. We do that too, recolorize minds. We want focus up there, down here. Vapor, spouting, funnels, corny cool. We want song from all sides, brushing up. Floor trembling. We're different folks, jostling together. We want surprises at choice moments, poking us. Roof rumbling, quivering mess, closing ranks. We want insides turned outside, turned inside. Doors opening. We can do that. Totally, right? We want reshuffling of all feelings and fortitude.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Next up, born and raised in New Orleans,
That's right.
Bernardo Wade tries at poems, catches elbows in the court, and rides his bike around Bloomington, Indiana, but not for much longer, right?
Not too long.
Because IU funds his present period of studying with others. Previously the editor of Indiana Review, he now serves as assistant editor and poetry editor for Obsidian, Literature and Arts in the African Diaspora. He'll soon be wandering the Bay Area, Stanford this fall, as a Wallace Stegner Fellow. Though he's published in a bunch of literary journals no one in his family has ever heard of, they remain proud of him, especially when they are featured in the poems. His first full-length poetry collection is forthcoming from Lookout Books of UNC Wilmington. He's infatuated with Ed Roberson's question, "Can you OD on life?" Please welcome up Bernardo Wade.
I'm so dang honored to be here. I should have prepared a little more, but will live with me. I had a whole different thing to do. I'm like, let's do new stuff. Let's do stuff I'm working on a little bit. Why not? Yeah. This first poem I'm going to do. So this is in honor of Jazz Fest. So every year for Jazz, that's why, every year for Jazz Fest, me and my family, we go. And the tradition is you see Mays and Frankie Beverly, which is a past tradition now. But we did that maybe 30 years in a row or whatever crazy thing. And so this poem is, basically I wrote this poem because I was walking down, I talk a lot, sorry. But I was walking down Wednesday at the square and I heard a Mays and Frankie Beverly song. So I went over like a moth, I went to it, And my editor of Obsidian was asking me about a poem about listening. And so I said, you know what, let me put all this together, right? So this poem is called Listening to Nigel Hall Cover Golden Time of the Day at Lafayette Square. A butterfly blows bubbles over the crowd. This is the Big Easy. Her purple vans loosening their tongues, each step in rhythm. Nigel is off key, like this poem, and it's beautiful. How the butterfly's partner has a picture frame around his neck. We are emerging from his imagination. The four horsemen hold up their squad car. Unfortunately, they are beautiful too. One officer, palms swaying with the sky, sings, "Look above and give your heart." So I look above, but I don't find the light of God, heaven, or any other metaphor to save what's broken in us. My mother emerges from the glow of my imagination. She says, "Don't get excited." She holds a glass of wine and weighs the possibility of rain. She says, "Don't get excited. I'm not here for you to entertain some dark cloud on this page. Shining. Can't you see? It's shining." All right, I don't know why I'm reading this right now, but I'm going to do it. This poem is called, It's Hard for Me to Tell You This Without Picturing It. I wish I could forget the night I snuck into my parents' room, testing the door, lightly jostling it, till I wedged myself through a crevice and then crept in with the same soft steps my auntie, usually a little tipsy, liked to warn me about, saying, "Don't trust men who don't finish their plate or can't be heard when they walk through your home." Mind you, I wasn't a man, but a boy who fledged his way onto the mattress's corner, nestled between wanting to be held and playing possum. I began to hear my mother's breath escalate to a sound, at the time, I associated with Marilyn Monroe, our Cocker Spaniel, who'd sometimes whimper out of the light, begging for another treat. Then my father began to speak. His low, sweet tone surprised me. He sounded like a child, working his wants out. He said, "Yes, baby, yes." Then I said, "What baby?" And my mother fell off the bed, screaming. So I laughed, just like you might have, just now. And he said, "This motherfucker," and laughed back. All right, so this next one I'm going to read is something I'm working on right now. I was doing this kind of project for this journal, and I pitched this thing about black masking Indians. And so right now I'm working on a long narrative piece that actually tracks the origin of the black masking Indian. And if you know about Mardi Gras Indians or black masking Indians, the thing of their origin is kind of shrouded, so we don't know exactly how it started. So this is something I might call like a fantastical fabulation of that story, or I do call it that. But this is just an excerpt. I'm still working on it, but I'm going to give you what I got right now. So this is an excerpt from Origin of a Big Chief, and this is about Juju, who is becoming what would become the first big chief, basically. It's a fictional story. One moonshine morning, Juju, leaving the bar as the sky fell to its knees, saw that first sliver of light and thought, "Now that's pretty." How for years he'd manicured the lawns of those pearly-teethed mansions along the river and wondered about their owners, comparing their taste to the dawn that splashed and warmed his face with all that money. You'd think they wouldn't spend it, making everything so prim, so absent, so ugly. Sometimes he was curious. of the secrets between those families who for carnival massed in their white capes and frail gowns only to parade down what was for him. Avenues that seemed so haunted, his bones went cold and ached whenever he found himself on them. To remedy, he'd been taught by his grandmother to take a handful of Itla Okla Spanish moss and think of all the softness the moss's life had collected from the wind. He remembered her words, the way her stories taught boys like him that their blood was ancient, that ancestors never left their side, and sometimes, if you looked deep into the eyes of your kin, you'd see the prettiest of men dancing to the beat of a mighty drum, their faces lit by fire that burns in everything, even in the mosquitoes. He felt bleeding his ankles dry. He figured they were a sign he should have set in. But before he found his feet, Black, a bona fide booster out the Sixth Ward, whose reputation for doing folk ill by then was mostly forgiven, appeared like an apparition, a trickster who might follow you into a dream. He slung an arm around Juju's neck, talking so close, the air around him got hot with whiskey and torch fuel on his breath. He asked Love, "How come you ain't a flambeau man?" And Juju shrugged, knowing Black's gold-plated pride wasn't for nothing. Despite the constant threat of cooked flesh, the flambeau man made out decent. That is, if the torchbearer learned to twirl and strut and pick up all the coin the two-tongued strangers from Carnival threw to their feet. Juju noticed Black had a wound on his left arm, festering and unkept. It reminded him of the time as a boy he came home glowing over the thought of parading through the city, bathed in light. But his father, a man of few words who tried to avoid the oak-lined avenues at all costs, told him no son of his would ever hold their flambeau. Then he shuffled off, one of his fits, where he mumbled and cursed, rubbing the scar that ran from his ear down his neck, till, as he put it, he could find some peace and just sit, to drown himself and drink. All right, I'm gonna read one more. I'm gonna dedicate this one to my mama. I was gonna read, she was supposed to come yesterday and I was gonna read this, but then she didn't come, so I'm gonna read it now. This is called God Made Dirt and Dirt Ain't Popeyes. It's a sestina broken into bits, which is a form or whatever. It's a poem. On one parable short of grasping how someone dipped that first eye in the perfectly turned milk, which may have tasted a little sour, like childhood, or like a yearning to crawl back inside a simpler time. We'd pray. My mother, down in her purse, had enough coin to throw down on a big box. But doesn't hunger begin with someone's mother? Nestling them just inside the hip as her arm wraps perfectly down their back, enclosing the space, holding them like, I'll never let you go. Now taste the body's work. And what a child tastes of their own genesis goes down gently. As I taste this chicken today, like, damn, what is buttermilk? Give someone hunger and watch them discover the perfect ways to use milk inside another animal. I eat the biscuits inside my car because I can't wait to taste my last dollar. My mother put it perfectly, slap him because my hand hurts. Don't ask how we survived down in New Orleans, a city where someone simmered the cayenne-soaked grease bucket, like God lit the fire because he felt the mother's pressure, like he wanted a day off from feeding these children. All right, thank you.
Next up, Jaeyoun's English translations appear in an anthology, edited and introduced by Jake Levine from Vagabond Press in 2020. In addition, her poetry collection Radio Days was published in English, translated by Suyeon Bae from Black Ocean Press in 2023. In Korean, she has published multiple books of poetry and criticism. Please welcome to the stage, Jaeyoun.
Hello, I'm very glad to be here. Thank you for having us. I'm gonna read 5 poems. I chose these 3 poems because here the city of mixture of cultures. Okay. First. 흰 페이지들.
white pages.
주어진 페이지들이 함부로 당도한 까마득한 발자국들로 뒤덮여 있을 때 흰 빛은 어떻게 되찾을까?
When footprints that arrived without permission from far away cover the given pages, how are the pages going to get their whites back?
발자국에서 자라나는 벽들의 높이와
The height of the bricks growing from footprints,
발자국에서 증폭하는 잎들의 묵음이
and the silence of mouths amplifying from footprints.
페이지의 두께를 더해가는 식민의 계절에도 자라나는 것들이 있다.
Even in the season of colonization that thickens the pages, things grow.
시간의 틈새에서 솟아난 교류처럼 우리는 무성하게 입을 벌리고 결국에는 밀림처럼
Like fungi that spores in the cracks of time. When we open our mouths thickly, in the end, like a jungle,
빽빽하고 야만스러워지는 것.
we become dense and barbaric.
바람은 기원을 알 수 없는 곳에서 불어오고 페이지들이 끝을 모른 채 넘어간다.
Wind blows here from an unknown place, and pages flit and flit and flit.
정박지도 도로도 없이 길을 잃다 만난 너와 나.
Without anchor or road, you and I met when we lost our way.
우리에게는 미개발의 빛들이 도착하고야 마는 것이다.
The undeveloped light finally reaches us.
추방된 자들,
The exiled.
여러 개로 갈라지는 혀를 가졌기에
Because we have a tongue that splits into multiples,
우리는 순종할 수 없습니다.
we can't obey.
당신들이 당신들을 남용하여
In this small world,
빛이 너무 많아졌습니다.
there became too much light
이 작은 세계에
because you abuse yourselves.
파도가 데려온 산호의 끝처럼 무한하게 회귀하는 말의 갈퀴에 쓸려
I'm swept away by rakes of speech and return infinitely, like the ends of coral washed up by waves.
무지하고 아름다운 아이들이 사라졌어요.
Clueless and beautiful children vanished.
빛이 있으라 했어도 어둠이 더욱 필요한 몸뚱이들이 태어납니다.
Even if you say, let there be light, bodies that need more darkness are born.
번식하는 문맹의 시간 속
In the time of breeding illiteracy,
내 혀에서 솟아나는
in the prayers of the countless horns,
무수한 뿔들이 으토리는 기도에는
spurting from my tongue,
신도 나라도 없습니다.
there is no God or country. We're going to switch up the order and read it in English first. It's okay if you don't know who I am.
내가 누구인지 몰라도 괜찮아.
While a flock of wild geese flies to the northern hemisphere, night also falls on this earth where the homeless on their park benches are met by morning.
기러기 떼가 북방구로 날아가는 동안 지구에도 밤은 찾아오고 공원의 벤치에서 홈리스들은 아침을 맞네.
For people without homes, is a bench a house or a bed?
집이 없는 사람에게 벤치는 집일까 침대일까?
Boat people who sway even in their sleep are like Jesus stuffed in a manger, young and sad.
잠자면서도 출렁이는 보트 피플들은 구유에 담긴 예수처럼 어리고 슬프다.
Can a wild goose become domesticated if you raise it in a house? Can a domesticated goose love its new home? The beginning of a story that can't be finished in the northern hemisphere can't be told by someone in the south. In a dream, floating pages construct a weightless house, a house someone tells me to crush. While the eye and nose jumbled faces make love to each other in a dream, I forget your name.
기러기를 길들이면 정말로 거위가 될까? 거위는 새로 얻은 집을 사랑할까? 지구의 북반구에서 완결되지 못한 이야기를 남반구에서 시작하려 한 건 누군가의 잘못. 흩날리는 페이지들이 꿈속에서 가벼운 집을 짓는다. 나더러 부수라고. 코와 입과 눈이 섞인 얼굴들이 꿈속에서 서로 사랑을 나누는 동안 나는 당신의 이름을 잊어버리네.
It's okay if you don't love me.
나를 사랑하지 않아도 괜찮아.
It's okay if you don't know who I am.
내가 누구인지 몰라도 괜찮아. Okay. Now I'm gonna be more romantic. This season, April in New Orleans is very beautiful. So I'm gonna read April story. 4월 이야기.
April story.
세계의 모든 호텔에서 체크아웃을 하며 연인들은 작별한다. 이제 정말 안녕이라는 듯이.
Lovers check out of every hotel in the world and give a gesture of farewell as if this really means goodbye.
우리는 우리의 리듬을 이해하는 사람을 만나기 위해 전 생애를 낭비한다.
Our entire lives are wasted trying to meet a person who understands our rhythm.
어제는 빙하처럼 얼어있던 눈이 녹아 흘러가고 있다. 하양이 사라진 만큼의 대기를 나는 심호흡한다.
The snow of yesterday that froze together like a glacier is melting away. I take a deep breath of the atmosphere made of that disappearing white.
12월에 만나 우리는 한여름의 이야기를 한다. 아기들은 계속 태어나고 있다고. 응애 응애 우는 울음소리는 조금씩은 닮아 있다. 혼자서 태어난 셀 수 없는 아기들의 요람이 지구처럼 흔들린다. 이제 정말 안녕이라는 듯이 4월에 눈이 내린다.
We meet in December and talk about midsummer, the babies that keep being born, that wah-wah of each child's cry, somewhat resembling that of another. The cradles of countless babies born alone rock like the earth and. Now, as if this really means goodbye, snow is falling in April.
당신의 혀끝에서 하양은 사라지고
In this moment, the white on the tip of your tongue has disappeared.
낯익은 차가움이 남은 지금.
Only a familiar chill remains.
The last one is about spirit and opportunity, Mars Rovers. 스피릿과 opportunity.
Spirit and opportunity.
영원히 종료되지 않을 여행이라는 프로그램을 너는 시작하게 된 것일까? 아무 이유가 없이.
Without any reason whatsoever, why did you start a program called The Infinite Vacation that never ends?
내게 입력된 커맨드가 치명적으로만 너를 전진시킬 때
When the command that enters you pushes you forward in a way that can only be described as fatal,
가장 먼 곳에서 전해오는 모래바람의 정신을 기록하기 위해서는 온몸이 먼지에 뒤덮여야 한다는 것.
in order to record the soul of the sandstorm blowing in from the farthest lands, your whole body must be covered with dust.
어떤 세계의 시작도 먼지로 이루어진다는 사실을 너의 눈동자로 증명하는 것이다.
The proof is in your pupils. All worlds begin from dust.
펼쳐져서는 안 되는 장면에 펼쳐지고만 인공위성의 날개처럼.
In a scene impossible to unfold, like the wings of a satellite that are eternally spread.
슬픔이 무한으로부터 전달되어 온다.
Sourced from infinity, sorrow is transmitted.
무한과 무한의 사이에 찍힌 하나의 점과 같은
Like a single speck marked between infinity and infinity
우리에게.
to us.
Thank you so much.
Don't get too comfortable, Jake. Jake Levine is up next. He is an assistant professor of creative writing at Kim Young University. He edits the award-winning contemporary Korean poetry series Moon Country at Black Ocean Press, and his first full-length book of poetry, The Imagined Country, came out with Tulsun Books in 2023, and earlier this afternoon, when we had a 5-minute rest before this reading, he spent it in a headstand reciting the archaic torso of Apollo. Please welcome Jake Levine.
Thank you for having us here. We've been on like a kind of whirlwind tour We got here on Saturday, and the jet lag keeps getting worse. Hopefully by tomorrow it's just gonna get down, and then whoop, it gets better. This poem is called Hail Utopia, after Jaeyoun. First time I've ever read this poem out loud. Yeah. I think of the peach half wriggling while the worm body blackens to a concrete stain under the Arizona sun. Is the part still alive, the head or the ass? Dissecting K-pop stars like kids ripping the clothes off plastic dolls and splitting them in half with a kitchen knife. I think of a dog missing its front leg, circling only to the left, the mouth trying to eat the body while the body is dragged away by the mouth. On cold days, a memory of the burnt smell of Barbie's burning hair warms the inside of my nose. I guess some decisions are made in advance, and yet the details of personal contracts are made murky with smudged ink. Like the light feeling at the end of a long meditation. The only reason I keep running while I'm jogging is because I'm being chased by old age. I eat fresh sardines at the South Sea, and at dusk I am like the socialist that looks out the window at the end of the waters and knows the revolution is at least as far as the horn of that little boat that disappeared in the fog. Even though we can't see it, we can hear it. Hail, hello, utopia, as if we are now living at the end of the world. The poem's a little bit longer, but I cut it short. Scared I'll go too long. This poem is called Kim Jong-un and Jake Levine. When Kim Jong-un's father died, and Kim Jong-un rose to the position of Supreme Leader of North Korea and leader of the Workers' Party of Korea, Jake Levine got hired at Sejong University. Kim Jong-un and Jake Levine are the same age. Kim Jong-un and Jake Levine both gained weight. Kim Jong-un and Jake Levine both struggle to control their smoking habits. And yet Jake Levine is not married to a famous North Korean singer, and Jake Levine has no nuclear warheads. Although Jake Levine and Kim Jong-un live on the same peninsula and watch Dennis Rodman play basketball as children, Jake Levine does not have a security detail, and Jake Levine rarely has people cry when he meets them. Jake Levine has had very cool haircuts, but he has never held hands with South Korean President Moon Jae-in. Jake Levine got a PhD and reads a lot of books. Each book he reads means he knows that the more he knows, the more he understands how little power he has. I'll read another poem about this guy, Yuwon, called All Maximalist Poets Must Die. It's based off of his first book, for Yuwon. I came into this world naked, bloody, and screaming. I'm gonna go out the same damn way. Baphomet. Riding a brown bear through the untamed woods on a scorching night when it is over 100 degrees. To the lake, where the mermaids with hairy armpits sing for the fishermen who shave their asses and chests smooth to swim faster. On a moonless night, a very dark night, when high school girls eating strawberry bingsu out of plastic cups don't even smile in their selfies. When feverish rats with black hair don't have the energy to leave their nests. When the calluses on the fingers of a blind bluesman who went to jail for 30 years for larceny and murder suddenly feel very soft. Only on that kind of night. A night when the emperor with 45 concubines and a double chin, who can't even have sex after eating the most powerful red ginseng plucked from the Choson dynasty, declares, all maximalist poets must die. On that particularly dangerous kind of night, Hwang Yuwon and I become the sexiest poets alive. Two outlaws from Texas who shot at the sheriff with their Colt 45s and rolled their half-lame horses across the border with blood leaking from bullet holes in their 10-gallon hats, who sweated day and night and almost died of heat exhaustion, dehydration, herpes, syphilis, and the tedium of bobbing all day on a horse. who were shot in the backs or abandoned and left by their friends to be eaten by cross-eyed jaguars with broken tails after following the eyes of a wandering eagle that tracked a family of pack rats deep in the jungles of Mexico, who were like Brutus stabbing Caesar, cheeks salted with tears from crying the night before, who were like Bob Dylan the day he picked up the electric guitar and permed his hair and said, "Fuck you" to folk, are now a part of the brotherhood where maximalist poets must die. Somewhere beyond the moon, David Bowie is on a black star singing the maximalist poet song, and the ghost of Karl Marx is combing his maximalist beard. In other words, today is a day where the stars that became black holes are starting to sparkle again. Yes, tonight the happy Buddha pats his enormous gut and chants a maximalist chant. For thousands of years, without pausing to catch his breath, maximalist Kim Soo-young melts Antarctica with a single drop of his maximalist spit end. My song is like the Siberian wind. It makes all the purple nipples of all the bears in the Arctic stick out 3 inches. Because today is the day when maximalist poets must die. And I'll read one more poem, also about Hwang Yuwon. It's called Hwang Yuwon's Metaphysics. Hwang Yuwon's also a translator. Hwang Yuwon's Metaphysics. Languages I don't know make symphonies of my ear without licking my mind, and Hwang Yuwon pukes in a taxi. In order to be a poet, Rilke thought you had to be a hero or a lover or dead at 20, and Hwang Yuwon pukes in a taxi. Hwang Yuwon pukes in a taxi, and I pay the taxi driver 50,000 won because Hwang Yuwon puked in a taxi. Hwang Yuwon crosses a threshold of social acceptability. Hwang Yuwon is a little less Hwang Yuwon without his puke inside him, and the taxi is more Hwang Yuwon with Hwang Yuwon's puke inside it. Is the taxi driver that drives the taxi interested in the metaphysical transformation between Hwang Yuwon and his taxi? Is 50,000 won an adequate entrance fee for this deep and philosophical metabolic exchange? Like drugs, dancing, sex, or art, perhaps puking inside of a taxi is a spontaneous and deep form of surrender. Perhaps to illustrate to me possibilities beyond what I have experienced because I have never puked in a taxi, Hwang Yuwon pukes in a taxi. All of the taxis in the world that Hwang Yuwon hasn't puked in feel endlessly empty as Hwang Yuwon endlessly empties. When Hwang Yuwon pukes in a taxi, he is pouring out translation theory. Hwang Yuwon taps on the gates of infinity. Hwang Yuwon pukes in a taxi. Thank you.
Guess which poet is up next? Hwang Yuwon is a poet and translator. He is the author of 4 collections of poetry: White Deer Lake, Supernatural 3D Printing, You Should See Me in a Crown, and Everything in the World Maximized. He translates a variety of poets and novelists from English to Korean, including Walt Whitman, Bob Dylan, Herman Melville, and Anne Carson. He has also won 4 major Korean literary awards. Please welcome Hwang Yuwon.
Hi, thank you for having us, and it's so nice to be here. Yeah, I think I'm getting more embarrassed by this poem, but I still love it. It's a masterpiece. Yeah, it is. The poem that I'm going to read, I'm gonna read just one poem. It's quite long because I'm kind of a maximalist. It's called Night of the Centipede. And the subtitle is Massive Attack. I used to listen to Massive Attack a lot, and I love them. So I wrote this poem while I was listening to the music of them. Yeah, so I don't really know what it's about, but you'll see.
You want to listen to the song?
Oh, gotta introduce it. Okay.
Yeah.
진해의 밤.
Night of the Centipede.
누구도 자네의 아름다움을 보지 못하는 아주 멍청한 밤일세.
Tonight, a very stupid night when nobody can see your beauty.
허물을 벗을 때마다 아주 길어지는 지네들이 기어다니는 아주 검고 붉은 빛나는 키틴질의 밤이란 말일세.
A night of shining chitin, made by centipedes crawling here, there, very black, red, getting long and big, molting.
어디선가 자네 마누라가 허물을 벗고 있을 아주 은밀한 밤이라고 말하면 자네가 이해하는 데 도움이 될까?
Tonight, if we call it a night of extreme secrecy, a night where your wife is off somewhere shedding her skin, would it help you understand?
진해의 밤, 온마디가 하나의 앞절임, 여러 편의 악장이 이어진 교향곡이 방구석을 기어다니는 아주 웅장한 밤이라 생각이 들지 않느냐 말일세.
Night of the Centipede, each a segment of a musical passage, a night conducted in multiple movements, from corner to corner, a symphony crawling around the room, an awesome night, right?
그 많은 다리가 고작 한 마리의 것이라니 그 많은 다리가 한꺼번에 움직일 때마다 와르르 연주되는 음악은 썩 훌륭하지 않은가 이 말일세.
I mean all those legs in just one animal. I mean the music of all those legs moving at one time. Isn't it fantastic?
상상할 수나 있겠나? 수백만 년 전 우리가 고작 네 발로 기어다녔을 뿐이던 시절 그때 어디 감히 음악 같은 게 있었겠나?
Can you imagine? Hundreds of millions of years ago in the age when we crawled on just four legs, would music dare to exist in that time?
자네가 침대 위로 무지막지하게 내팽개쳐지기 시작할 때 누군가는 이미 먹히고 있고 누군가는 이미 먹고 있다는 걸 이제 자네도 알만한 나이가 되지 않았는가 이 말이지.
What I'm saying is, when you get concussively flung atop the bed for the first time in your life, somebody is already being eaten and someone is already eating. And what I'm saying is, aren't you old enough to know that by now?
누군가는 은밀히 어둠 속에서 하의를 벗고 있고 누군가는 더욱 은밀히 구석에서 입맛을 다시고 있다는 걸 지네나 자네나 둘 다 모른 척 잠들어봤자 우리는 다리가 아주 많이 달린 징그러운 아름다움의 꿈에 실린 채 또 온갖 곳들로 데려가지고 있겠지. 거기 털은 또 얼마나 많이나 있겠나.
Someone is secretly shedding their high heels in the dark, and someone is even more secretly smacking their lips in the corner. And if you and the centipede pretend, if the centipede and you feign ignorance, the moment you try to sleep, we will get taken by the legs and loaded and galloped from place to place inside a beautiful and grotesque dream. Just think, how many more hairs will grow there?
몇 시간을 걸어 올라간 끝에 도달한 아주 높은 언덕 위에서 수백 미터나 되는 열차. 소화불량이던 역의 플랫폼과 대합실 전부를 집어삼키고 가는 열차가 겨우 한 마리 다종류로 보인 적이 있다며. 백항공원에서였지. 그러나 한 마리 지네가 낳는 새끼의 수는 또 얼마나 많은가 이 말일세. 거기 다리는 또 몇 개나 달려있겠나.
At the top of a very high hill that is reached only after several hours of climbing, a train stretched out several hundred meters, a train that completely gobbled the platform, the waiting room, of a station with bad indigestion. And I swear, that train looked like a single millipede. This occurred at the Deccan Plateau. What I mean is, all those babies, the babies coming into being from one body of the centipede. What I mean is, just think of the legs, the number of legs on that thing.
진해의 밤, 생각만으로 혼미해지는 믿을 수 없이 빛나는 횡설수설의 밤.
Night of the Centipede. Just the thought alone. A dizzying, unbelievably light-emitting, blither-blather night.
나는 인류의 미래보단 진해에게 할당된 다리 수를 믿겠네. 진해가 계속 태어나 열차보다 오래 살아남을 거란 쪽에 내 두 다리를 걸겠네. 갓 태어난 진해는 또 얼마나 아름다운가.
More than into the future of humanity, do I place my faith in the distribution, the multiplication of centipede legs. And I'll bet my two legs that centipedes will continue to be born and survive longer than trains. I mean, what is more beautiful than the newborn centipede?
이보게, 진해가 기어다닐 땐 문틈으로 바람 부는 소리가 난다네. 문도 안 열어놨는데 문은 이미 벌써 언제나 열려 있었고 진해가 늘어날수록 바람은 더 크고 아름다워져 문을 미친 듯이 열어 제끼고 박살날 만큼 세게 닫아버리겠지. 세상 모든 진해들의 다리를 헤아리다 바람 속에서 잠들어 버리고만 싶은 마음일세.
I mean, look here. When a centipede crawls around, the sound of wind blows through a crack in the door. And even though the door hasn't been opened, The door is always already and forever open. And as the centipede elongates, the wind will become so big and beautiful that it will yank open the door like a crazy mother, and also like a crazy mother. It will slam the door so unmotherly it could break, yes. Tonight is the kind of night where all I want to do is go to sleep in the wind while counting the legs of all the centipedes in the world.
갑자기 모든 게 너무 동시다발적으로 일어나고 있네. 자네는 이걸 고작 유사생물학적 키네틱 아트 정도로 생각하고 있나? 쉽고 간단할 것, 그네라도 타는 것처럼. 그러니 자네도 한번 지네를 타고 인간이 한 번도 기어들어가 보지 못한 곡선 속으로 기어들어가 지네처럼 둥글게 몸을 말고 빛나보는 게 어떻겠나?
Suddenly, everything is happening at a once that is all too much. Do you still think this is just an imitation of a biological kinetic art? Easy and simple, just like riding a swing. How about you also take a leap and ride the centipede? Crawl into a curve no human has ever crawled into before. And like the centipede, roundly ball up your body, curve up, shine.
지네는 술에 떡이 돼 바닥을 기어다니는 여대생으로 둔갑할 수도 있고 술이 깨고 나면 기립할 수도 있을 것이네. 물론 지금의 자네나 나 같은 모습으로도. 그러곤 사랑하는 이들을 힘껏 껴안아줄 테지.
A centipede can disguise itself as a college girl and crawl around the floor like it is totally wasted. And even after sobering up, it can walk around just like how you or I now walk. And afterwards, it can grab and hold tight to those that it loves.
사랑하면 두 팔로만 안아도 좋은데 몇십 개의 팔에 안기는 기분은 또 어떻겠나?
If it's this nice getting hugged by the two arms of someone you love, imagine the feeling of a hugging done by dozens of arms.
테이블 위에는 자신을 통째로 토하며 죽어가는 지네가 담긴 하나의 술병이 놓여 있고
On top of the table, there's a liquor bottle with a centipede inside. It vomits its entire self and dies, and
쓰러진 술병에서 흘러나온 술은 테이블 위로 활짝 펼쳐지다 모서리에 이르러 줄줄 혹은 뚝뚝 떨어지는 거겠지. 또 다른 지평으로 부드러운 평면으로 오늘 밤 네가 갖고 놀던 장난감이 너를 갖고 놀고 있었다는 걸 발견하게 될 때까지 나는 모든 다리들이 연결된 모든 몸뚱아리들을 밤새 증언대로 끌고 다니는 것을 소원한다.
alcohol from knocked over bottles blooms across the top of the table, and coming to a corner, the alcohol drips down in a drippity drip or a ploppity plop onto another horizon, a soft flat surface, tonight, till you discover how the toys you thought you played with actually played with you. If it takes until morning, many mornings, I will permit all these legs to drag around their attached bodies any damn way they want.
지네의 밤, 빛나는 키틴질의 밤이고 최상급이 모든 나머지를 무력화시켜버리는 밤.
Night of the centipede, night of shining chitin, and night of the superlative incapacitation of everything that is not superlative.
저기 길고 놀라운 웃음소리가 까르르르 기어가고만 있네.
A long and surprised chuckly tee-hee crawling over there.
지네 한 마리가 한 번에 들 수 있는 악기 수는 또 얼마나 많겠나.
Just think, how many instruments can a centipede hold at once?
지네 한 마리가 한 번에 들 수 있는 모든 기타와 보컬들과 드럼들과 베이스들이 내장한 온마디가 저려오는 경명과 발작들이 구불구불 기어다니는 바닥은 분명 간지러울 거야. 그럴 땐 바닥에 들어놓아 하하하 히히히히 드르륵 드르르륵 하루 종일 열렸다 닫혔다도 해보고 웃음으로 제 얼굴 뒤흔들다 얼굴이 와장창 무너져 내려보는 것도 나쁘진 않겠지.
One centipede holding up a guitar, vocals, drums, bass, all at once, embedded in a single measure, numbing into the convulsing, seizuring, windy of the crawling of the floor that must be tickly, and then it won't be so bad to get on the floor and ha 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 ha, hee hee hee, didderuk, and open and shut and shake your face all day with laughter till the faces crash and collapse and...
나쁜 건 없지. 그런 건 이미 무수한 다리들을 빌려 이 땅에서 서서히 증발하고 있을 거야.
Is it that bad? Nothing's really that bad. It's always been like that. Borrowing the uncountable legs, and even now, things are slowly evaporating from this land.
털이 너무 많이 난 횡설수설, 광란의 로큰롤세.
Gibberish with too much hair growing on it. Rock and roll rampage.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed their performance, please join us Friday night at Cafe Istanbul at the New Orleans Healing Center on St. Claude Avenue. At 6:30 p.m. they will do a panel with a couple more, another translator and the publisher. They'll do a panel at 6:30, and then they will do another performance, a bit more extended, a bigger performance at about 7:30 that evening. But before that, New Orleans Poetry Fest also has the Locals Night opening gala and fundraiser at the Saturn Bar Thursday night at 7 p.m. We have 5 local New Orleans poets who will be spitting their best game that evening. And after that, Saturday and Sunday is the actual fest of the festival. We have about 39 readings with 195 poets who are coming in from all across the world, the states, all over the place. The woodwork, you name it, they're coming from there. We have 20 roundtables with discussions of different poetries and poetics. We also have 11 free workshops and about 36 or 37 presses and organizations represented at the book fair. It's going to be a huge festival, and it's going to be a banging good time. We do have some time for a Q&A. We probably got about 5 or 10 minutes for that. So if you have some questions for the poets, feel free to ask. We don't have to pass around a microphone. 1, we don't have one. 2, we can all hear each other. Does anybody have any questions for these poets? Any of the poets who read this evening?
I have a question.
Rodrigo?
The maximalism, is the maximalism, is that a movement in Korea, or is it a style, or is it a description of your own poetry, or what is the maxim? Yeah.
Oh, is it?
Probably both of y'all.
I never called myself as maximalist before, but it's Jake Levine who called me that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe he should answer.
Oh, okay.
His first book is called Everything in the World Maximalized.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and his poems are like,
Live up to the max.
his poems are like super long, and the lines are like these really long extended lines. And so I thought about his voice as being like this really huge maximalist.
Yeah, it does have a maximalist feel.
As opposed to minimalist, right? Minimalist.
And then,
So what I was curious about is the centipede. Is the word in Korean, does it mean 100 legs, like in English?
Oh, it means 100? You mean millipede? Like?
Well, it's centipede.
Centipede?
Or is it just
100
the
legs.
designation of a bug?
Oh, Chine, no, it's got nothing to do with the legs. The
Oh, it has
name
nothing
is
to
there,
do
it's
with the number of
name.
legs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has no.
Because, yeah, I was thinking maybe your next project should be a millipede.
I've already written, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, to maximize it.
See what you mean. I will try to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions for these wonderful poets?
yeah, I have one more question. Did you fly directly here, or did you stop on the West Coast for a day or two, or you just flew straight?
We flew to Dallas and stopped there for 4 hours.
Oh.
And ate really terrible food there.
Yeah.
At the airport.
Yeah,
It
terrible.
was really awful. That was the first meal Yuwon has had in America.
Oh.
Yeah.
Dallas Airport? Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's only getting better.
Yeah.
Beer was alright.
The beer was good.
We
Yeah.
enjoyed beers.
One more, another question back there?
The one about puking in the taxi, was that based off of a story, or was that just you telling a joke?
No, he puked in the taxi. Yeah.
Happens every time.
No, it doesn't happen.
Oh, not every time.
It just happened this one time.
How did you write that poem? Did you decide you wanted to troll your friend? I mean, did you know you would read it?
I told him that the day after we were hanging out, and I told him I was going to write a poem about it, and then I wrote it and I sent it to him before I showed it to anybody else, and he said, "Dude, this is a masterpiece." So, yeah.
It's a great poem.
Yeah.
Well, before we disperse, hope you don't mind, I'll take a picture of y'all. Gotta have something for the Instagram. Y'all ready out there? 1, 2, 3. Kimchi. Perfect. I got that from one.
Yeah.
Thank y'all so much for coming. This has been a pleasure. Thank you, Metairie.